This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 458 of the Dressage Radio Show on the Horse Radio Network, brought to you by Kentucky Performance Products, Total Saddle Fit, and Sterling Essentials. On today's show, we talk to Emily Miles about training and riding 6-year-old dressage horses. Richard Malmgren joins us again for an update about long lining, and we have a trainer tip on the older Schoolmaster.
This is Reese Koffler-Stanfield from Loxahatchee, Florida.
And this is Philip Parks from Rockwood, Ontario, and you're listening to the Dressage Radio Show.
Hi,
well, hi, Reese.
Phil. How are you?
What's going on?
Oh, goodness.
It's okay. You know,
It's
working
snow.
away. Yeah, it's snowing a bit, but, that's fine.
It's
No,
March.
I don't want to talk about that. Let's talk
yeah.
about what's going on
What's
in
going on
Wellington, Florida.
In Wellington? Well, Phil, it's very exciting here in Wellington. This week is the largest CDI in North America. I think probably ever. It's huge. I think there's over 150 horses that jogged yesterday. They literally jogged the horses, and there was competition yesterday.
Is this the last CDI then? Is that why everybody's like getting their last show mile?
Last hurrah.
Yeah.
I think there's one more. There's
Okay.
the Nations Cup week.
Oh, right.
But I think there's this week, and then next week's a national show, and then the Nations Cup, and then it's over. So it's wrapping up rapidly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's fun. A lot of people are down here visiting this week, which is super fun. And we're wrapping up. So we're just busy. I mean, this is, you always think like, oh, I'm going to not be busy the last 2 weeks of season. And you're always really busy the last 2 weeks of season. So, and then we kind of pack up and go home. So, but it's been really good. Just doing lots of fun stuff, which has been great. So, yeah.
I like that. Well, good luck to all of our competitors.
Exactly.
This weekend or this week coming up. These shows take 5 days almost, right? So
yeah, they jogged.
So many classes
jogged yesterday.
and stuff.
Yeah, Wednesday.
They jogged
and
yesterday, and so you got your young riders, you got your young horses, it's everybody. It's crazy down there.
It is.
I can only handle it for 4 days at a time. That's okay.
Well,
it's not my laid back lifestyle.
No, sometimes we have to escape for sure. So yeah, it's all good.
I think we got a good show. What's going on?
We have a really good show. So we're going to come back and talk with Richard Malmgren again this week. I think you're really going to enjoy that. And Emily Miles, continuing our 6-year-old discussion. We're coming back with Emily Miles. So we have lots of good stuff. So
our trainer tip is going to include tips about the older Schoolmaster. So, or I think just kind of the older dressage horse in general, how to keep them fit and, what you should be doing. And I really like that talk as well.
Yeah, I do. So we have a great show. So right after this commercial break, we're going to come back with Richard Malmgren.
The sun is just peeking above the tree line as you walk into the barn. You grab your horse's halter off the hook and head out to the field. The dew shimmers in the sun as you walk across the damp grass. You call his name and his head comes up as he walks toward you, looking for the apple in your pocket. You take your time grooming, enjoying the peace and quiet in the empty barn. A refreshing breeze greets you as you start down the tree-lined path. Your horse ambles along on a loose rein as you both enjoy a relaxing ride. The feeling you get on an early morning hack is why we do what we do at Kentucky Performance Products. This feeling is brought to you by Microphase. Fill the nutritional gaps in your horse's diet. Microphase Vitamin and Mineral Supplement is a low-calorie way to provide your horse with the vitamins and minerals missing from their diet. The horse that matters to you matters to us.
Well, we are so excited to have our friend Richard Malmgren back on the show. He is our long lining expert, and he's my coach as well with long lining, and I just adore my lessons with him. So, Richard, welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you very much for having me again. I really appreciate it.
Well, we are very thankful you are such a patient coach. Because long lining is something it's very hard to do, and we had a lesson actually this morning, and I'm lucky enough when we're in Florida that we're able to take lessons, and I think I'm slowly getting better with my skills, but it's really an art. And we were going to talk about we did a segment last year, and I was so happy to have you back for a segment this year. So we're sort of doing long lining 2.0 today. We did 1.0 last year. So please feel free you can look up Richard's previous interview on our website. But Richard, tell us 2.0, what are we talking about today with long lining?
Well, first and foremost, riding is an art, so long lining is riding from the ground. So that's why it's also obviously an art. And like anything, when it comes to art, you have to dedicate time to it, and you have to be, get yourself familiar and comfortable with the lines, and then, the constant moving, going with the horse, because it is not lunging. It is riding from the ground. And therefore, it takes the skills so that you are constantly connected to the horse, because it's only through, your reins that you're actually in connection with the horse. Because obviously you don't have any weight aid, leg aids, seat aids, and so, it is the reins, which then doesn't mean that the reins are supposed to be more than they are when you ride, because then you're doing it wrong. I'm not supposed to be sore in my biceps after I've long lined, especially if I go do a clinic over a weekend, which I might do 8 horses, one day and then follow up the next day with 8 horses again. And then therefore I cannot, be sore in my biceps. It doesn't work that way. So it's, it is about having the same connection with the reins that you have when you ride. And then that's when we go into what can then the long lining, why is it so good, and what does it do to the horse? And it's so much about that the horse has to, find his or her own balance, and being able to own up to his or her own weight and not lean on a inside leg or drift out and lean on the outside leg, and again, without the visuals, but you have a special surcingle and you are leather reins. And then I also use a little rein called an outrigger, which creates like a leading rein on the inside. And so that helps the horse with the bend in the neck and the bend in the rib cage. And again, it just sets the horse up, that at the end of the day, they have to figure out how to use their own body. And again, we know that the engine is in the hind legs, and that we know that we steer not with the mouth, and the head, but we steer, with the shoulders. So that's how I like to see it, and then I want first and foremost to get an alignment of the horse. And so then I get the horse to start working on an octagon, so that again, we have some straight and then some small turns where the shoulder comes around the haunch and then goes straight. And that way the horse starts activating the inside leg and the horse starts seeking the outside contact, and then after that, when you have the horse connected and the horse starts aligning, you have obviously the opportunity to see the horse from a trainer's perspective, because you are on the ground. And then you can study the horse's body, and you can see, does the horse actually land up with its hind leg in the front feet hoof prints? That way you know that the horse is aligned, and you know that the horse is engaged. If it doesn't track up, then you know that there's tightness and the horse is not through. So that gives you that perspective, because we all learn auditorial, visual, and kinesthetic. And again, the visual part is the one thing that we don't get a lot when we ride. You can have all the mirrors in the world, but it doesn't really gives you the feeling as seeing a horse and rider from the ground. And, we should video ourselves a lot more, but it's, again, a video, as we all know, it's way better than not videoing for sure. But this way of being able to see your horse in the flesh when you're long lining is just such a a big positive thing. And then even if you don't long line, because a lot of places where I go, I am actually the one long lining the horse. There's, quite few people that actually do want to learn it and taking the time. You're one of the few. I probably have just about a handful of people that actually are dedicated and wants to learn, and that I actually go and teach. Most of the places I go.
It is fun, but takes, like you said, you have to dedicate time. Like, it's hard. It's not easy. You make it look so easy, like, oh, gosh, I can do that. Yeah, go on out there and take those reins. It's hard.
No, and that's so true. And that's why sometimes I do hand the reins to people when they are really wanting to learn it. And then it takes maybe 5 minutes, and then they, not even that sometimes they just see it. They go into a clinic thinking that they're gonna do it by the end of the clinic, and then not even like taking the reins, but just watching my first session with their horse, they are like, well, there's no way, that I can do this. And again, you got to make a decision. Do I want to learn this, or do I want to give my horse the best opportunity for this part of training, and so, you can't have it both. But Reese and Philip, how long have you guys dedicated your time to ride? It takes time. It's like riding lots of different horses. It's because, again, they're all different. Just like you're different from me, Philip, you're different from me. We're all individuals, just like the horses. And that's also what's so incredibly addictive to the sport that we're in and to the art that we're in. It's just again part of a different cross training that really, really can help the horse figure out its own balance, both longitudinal and then horizontal and then lateral, and so it's definitely a lot of phases in the long lining. And like I said, the first one is to get the horse to get aligned, and then by getting aligned, then he can start releasing in the withers, because that's the place where the most horses hold tension, and so we want to get access to the back. We want to have the engine being able to propel up through the haunches, over the back, and then through the withers and up to the pole, and so only by getting access to the back is how we're going to get it to come through and recycle the energy. And again, to be able to work on getting the horse to stretch, which again, we talked a little bit before when we recapped about Carl Hester, how important and how much he addressed on all the horses in all the levels to stretch down. And so this is what I really address when I go and do my clinics, is that the horse has to become aligned, and then he has to let go in the withers, and he can only release in the back when the pole gets below the withers. And I always say that a full stretch is when he imaginarily could roll a soccer ball with his nose, and then we know that he is really, really opened up in the back, and the nuchal ligaments in the back is free. And then it's about making, of course, flexing. You start compressing the back, and then you stretch it out again, so that it becomes like the accordion. And it's the same thing. I, again, can't do a visual here, but, you go to the gym and you grab a hold of a weight. You're not seeing people like, pumping it fast. It's like slow motion. You lift and you let go, and you lift and you let go, and you lift and you let go. And again, you're not flexing your muscle and then grab a hold of the weight and then start lifting the weight. No, we let the arm out so that the biceps muscle is relaxed, and then you grab a hold of the weight, and then you use the whole range of motion to start flexing it, And it's like when I describe this, when people are seeing me, what I do, and it's like, well, that makes sense. Well, so many things when we relate it to other sports and to how we work, because our sport has two athletes, and so muscles works the same way whether they're on a human or on a horse. So, it's just a lot of times to be able to break it down and make people aware about those things. And again, we're not training full show mode 6 days a week because nobody can do that. You don't think that Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal in tennis are like playing, match tennis, every single day, No. Again, they do interval training, they do distance training, they do weightlifting training, they do mental training, and these things so that they can go in and then turn the dial up and perform. And this is something also I believe that we need to start seeing, that in the sport, that, we don't train full force every day. Pirouettes, diagonals, one-time tempies, drilling them, pirouettes. And then, we did it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then now on Saturday, we're going to show. The horse comes in and it's completely pooped and tired and just can't do it, We have to put up a program. And this is, again, where I love this whole thing about cross-training and how, doesn't mean we have to lower our standards, No, absolutely not. We should have high standards in whatever we do, but we can do variety level of work, and the variety places of doing work, so that it doesn't become, boring, and it doesn't, become just kind of a drilling, and I think that this is what I believe so much that the eventers are better than us. And I believe that we can learn a lot from our different Olympic sports, and they can learn from us, the same thing with the show jumpers, between a fence, you have to have, the horse, in dressage to be able to make a turn on the dime, almost like a pirouette turn in canter, to then get to the next fence, and we need to open up our horses and canter them forward, and not sort of hold on a little bit and say, you know what, he might throw in a buck there, well, it's because there's tightness then, he needs to be able to open up. So again, that's just, I just love this part of being able to incorporate different things, but not sacrifice the standards,
That's awesome. Richard, sorry, while I have you on, I was kind of looking forward to having you on about long lining, because I have kind of a specific long lining question. I do it a little bit with the young horses, especially before I back them and during that process. So if you can handle a question here and give me a good answer, I would be very appreciative. So I'm long lining, and I have the horse. I like to drive them forward, and I like them, kind of to be connected and into my hand. Now, if I was on top of their back, I would, at this stage of the game, be maybe giving a half halt to kind of slow the rhythm and get everything a little bit more underneath themselves. I find it difficult because I am driving the horse to the bit when I'm doing the long lining. How do I create that moment of give? Like, what physically do I have to do to make that happen? So normally what I try and do is just to kind of take a quicker step to the horse, but I don't always know if that's just something that I've never really been taught to long line. So this is why I wanted an expert. How do you create that moment of give after a half halt when you are not on if I was on their back, I would kind of give my arms and lean forward a little bit, but obviously I'm not, I'm not, it's different. So maybe you can help me explain to me a long lining half halt, and then I can go and do it better.
Yeah, no, so it all goes together. And again, Carl Hester said half halts, there's millions ways of describing it. But at the end of the day, it's about a rebalance, and so what I do, again, with the long lining is that I want, the straight turn. And so I use patterns as the octagon or a pentagon or a diamond shape, and so when I then go, and let's just say we go in the left, to the left. And so if I want the horse to turn a little bit on a diamond pattern, and I go towards the haunch because the horse sees me because of the way a horse's eye is constructed. It sees me 3/4 behind the horse. So if I take one step towards the haunch, it sees me doing that, and that is a little bit the invitation for that left shoulder to come in. And in the same part where I go in towards the haunch, I do my half halt, and so it's a sequentially pattern that happens where because my body has to be, even if it's not on the horse, it has to be the part of also influencing the horse of how to direct him or her. So again, imagine yourself on this pattern: octagon, pentagon, diamond shape. And then when you come to a point where you're going to make a turn, then you go a little bit towards the haunch. And then again, you squeeze with your outside rein. And then I say sometimes squeeze, release, which means turn and then let go. Squeeze, release, turn and straight, turn and straight.
So if I understand you right, if after the turn is my next step towards the back of the horse again.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's what creates the release on the outside rein?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Got it. That makes sense to me.
Yeah. And again, it's just very, very hard. We had this discussion today actually in Reese's, session. Yeah. Because again, it's a little bit of a aha feeling, but it's also seeing it being done, and it's like, okay, I get it, and then to try to replicate it and doing it, and then you're like, okay, I get it, because it's not. You always have to be, like I said, you always have to be connected because the reins are your only way of staying connected to the horse. So you can never really throw them away because then the horse becomes like, oh, what happened now? There's, it's just out there in the free space. You have to follow the horse. And that's why, again, we never stand still when we long line. We all constantly move with the horse so that we can have this connection with the horse's mouth. But again, never to think that it's supposed to be heavier in the mouth. It's supposed to carry itself, because that's the whole point of creating self-carriage and ownership of the horse's own body.
I think my issue stems from doing too many straight lines in which the horse gets kind of going and running against the bit a little bit.
Yep.
So the idea of doing more turns to create better balance, I think will result in a better situation for my personal long lining issues.
Journey.
So I thank you for that. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. My pleasure. Hopefully we can do a live session one of these days.
Yeah, we'll do a session.
That would
awesome.
be so
I would love
fun.
That. Yeah.
I love it. Well, Richard, thank you so much for coming on. You've been so generous with your time. And if our listeners would like to get a hold of you, how can they find you?
Best way today in this world we're living in is probably Facebook. You can search me for Richard Malmgren, and you can send a message through that medium, and that way we can connect.
Fantastic, Richard. Thanks so much.
Thanks again, guys. I appreciate you having me on.
Sterling Essentials offers scented natural leather cleaners and conditioners that provide effective care for your leather, containing a special blend of natural food-grade products as well as therapeutic-grade essential oils. They are specially formulated to match the pH of leather. This ensures that your leather is nourished and protected while still being gentle on you and your horse. By providing a natural barrier to protect against water damage, mold, and mildew, your leather can remain in mint condition year-round. Both Sterling Essentials Leather Cleaner and Leather Conditioner are offered in lavender, eucalyptus, and floral citrus fragrances. Ask for Sterling Essentials leather products at your local tack and feed supplier, or you can visit them online at sterling-essentials.com.
Well, for our next guest in our Young Horse 6-year-old series is Emily Miles from Kansas. She is no stranger to the Young Horse and or FEI ring, so I hope you enjoy. Chips. Emily, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
We're super excited to have you back. And so let's start talking about 6-year-olds. You train a lot of young horses. You've trained young horses your entire life. So let's talk about what your expectations are for a 6-year-old.
I really like 6-year-olds. Like, I feel like the 6-year-old year is where they kind of grow up, and you can kind of start to see the future clearly, So the 6-year-old, I mean, most people think that's when the flying change comes in, and that's the most difficult part. And, we see the half passes and the trot in that test. So we have to show some collection and some extension. So it's a big jump for a lot of horses because of those things. But I think it's really a fun year because, like I said, they become less young horses and more adults.
I totally agree.
Yeah, I think that's good. I mean, for my 6-year-olds, I mean, this is the first time I'm sort of teaching any kind of real collection. So I think that, when you can really kind of package a horse together and, really bring the back of the horse up and, see what you got.
I think see how they respond. And then they often have more strength already to kind of show you a little bit more.
Yeah. So I think that's why that's why it's fun, because you're certainly starting to lead into, an experienced, advanced horse and a horse that's a little easier to control, because when you're thinking about packaging them, when you're putting your leg on and offering them a little bit of contact, you're going to get a little bit more control, hopefully. And then, I think up until this,
it's not really fair. Like the 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds are the ones that need to be able to do shoulder in and haunches in the most, like to get their brains in gear and to get them focused. They need to have a really good half hole, and they need to have like the ability to go forward and come back and pay attention, but they don't get those things. They are stuck with little baby leg guilt, so you don't have very many tools riding a 4 and 5-year-old dude trying to steer, but the 6-year-old, you start to get all those tools and you get to use them, and it's a big year and it's a fun year, I think. Yeah, for sure.
I think it is too. I think the horses at 6, they're also mature and they're ready to sort of accept the questions that you're going to ask them, right? So like you said, the flying changes, the half passes, most 6-year-olds. Now, again, we're talking about horses that have been at a program since they were little. And, it is different if somebody calls you and they haven't had a 6-year-old started.
Right.
Good luck with that. Call Emily, call me.
Not gonna work out for you.
Yeah, like good luck for that. But when it comes to something else, they're ready. Hopefully they've been to horse shows and they know how to get on trailers and know how to clip and all of those
and
things.
Hopefully they've been through the program, as a 4 and a 5-year-old, or at least done the test, and so you kind of have an idea what the judges think about them, where your not holes, but the tendencies are, oh, my horse has a short neck. I tend to, this is an issue. It has been for the last 2 years. And, it's just something I need to keep control of or keep my eye on. So you kind of have a training program in place. So yeah, it's a little bit already more than just a young horse test. They're there ready to go, so it's a fun year, I think.
Well, physically they should be grown as tall as they're going to get, and all of the growth plates should have closed.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
Grew 1 inch his 6-year-old year. Like,
really?
Wow. He grew an entire inch, but he's really a late developer, and like all of his babies are too. But in general, I would agree with you. But Wake Up was weird and still grew an inch that last year.
That's interesting. Yeah. Well, then, you still have to be thinking about that if they're developing and. So how many days a week are you riding this age of horse, or what's your plan for them?
We do like 5-6 days a week, but not every day do we do like quote unquote dressage working them. Like some days I'll get on the 6-year-old and just be like, walk, trot, canter, you're done. Just stretch your legs and whatever. If they're out on pasture, like I have a 6-year-old that lives out on pasture, then he probably only gets worked like 3 days a week, like honestly worked where he has to do the changes, he has to do the trot work. Other than that, like, another 2 days a week I get on and just either hack him over some cavalettis or whatever. but not. But even even my older horses, I wouldn't say work everything 5-6 days a week. I think 3 days a week to work everything is plenty. I think, and oftentimes I'll get on them and be like, oh, okay, let's just work on, this right half pass today, or that's all I'm going to focus on. And yes, you warm them up and then you do that, but you don't go through the whole program. And I think that's smart with young horses, is to get in and get out. You don't want to bore them to death with circles and dressage. So I think that's important.
So I think a big topic is the flying change and the introduction of the flying change. And I think, at this point we should address that. So, let's hear about your program, your tips and tricks, and your approach to teaching a flying change.
I actually really like flying changes. I don't know why, but I feel like it's either something you do or you don't. It's not like a half pass where, oh, that could be better, that could be worse. Either they did the change and it was clean, or they didn't do the change. So it's like one of those few black and white things in dressage. I really like them, actually. I usually start teaching the horses the changes when they're in the fall, winter of their 5-year-old year. So by the time spring rolls around their 6-year-old year, you have to kind of have them. And I think it's so frustrating, maybe let's say that it seems like a lot of horses are very good canners, whatever, you've done all your homework, you start the changes, they pick them up right away, and then they go through this phase of what the heck am I actually doing, this is weird, and then they forget them. Am I right, Reese? Have you had that same experience? They get them, they lose them, and they get them. It's always like that. And then I've had owners who are like, oh, but last month it was fine, what's going on, And now you kind of just have to be before we even start the changes, let me tell you, he's going to be a genius at them, and then he's going to forget what he's doing, and then he's going to figure them out again, and that time they're going to stick. Then he's going to know them, I
think the horse finds them fun at first and a little bit of a change of pace, and then all of a sudden this seems a bit like work, and I'm not having so much fun anymore.
I don't know. I feel like sometimes in the beginning they just do it on accident, and they're doing it but don't realize what they're doing, and then they realize what they're doing, and they're like, wait, that's kind of weird. I don't know if I can do that. That seems strange, But, so, obviously, the canter quality is really important before you do the change. The ability to make your horse straight. I think being able to ride a counter canter and be able to flex, counter flex, ride shoulder in, ride shoulder out in the counter canter, is super important. You have to be able to manipulate your horse, and they have to accept it, But I think that in that way, the changes actually can really help the quality of the canter and help the quality of the gait, because you are required to make sure that you have everything in place. The canter's nice and active, that you can adjust the straightness, that you can send them forward without that they lose the packaging, that they can listen to the slightest, hey, now you have to still go forward while we're in counter canter because you need some momentum for this change, So that work of the flying changes, not the actual flying change, but the actual work to get them prepped for it, I think it's super for the canter in general, So, and then
I was just going to say that for me is the key, right? A mistake that I made earlier, in my riding and training of horses is, and I see it now all the time because I can, look at the faults that I've done, is that when someone has problems with the changes, that they actually ride a lot of changes. Where if you think that the problem is the quality of the canter or the balance in the canter or something else other than the actual change itself, if there's a problem in the preparation or the rideability or the suppleness, then you start to say, well, the change is only a show of how good my canter is, or how balanced my horse is, or how. So I think a lot of people, like I said to myself too, would just say, try and fix a change, and get so frustrated and fixated and making the horse nervous and causing more problems than you're creating. I think now in my program, I will try a change or two with a horse and say, okay, that was good. And why was it good? Or that was bad. Now I have to go back and fix the hole in the canter that caused the change not to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you're learning, it's good to have a horse that's schooled, so you can figure out what it is the rider has to do to make the change good. And then you
absolutely.
And then you can you can move forward from that point.
to that point, like I got to learn changes on a horse that knew them. My mother, who is also my trainer and trains a lot of young horses, she learned changes on her stallion that was very nervous about the changes and would like kind of take off in them and whatever. So she has baggage in her changes, you know? And so because of that, like I'll help her with the changes all the time, like just because I don't have that baggage. And so I don't get nervous about them myself. I don't think they're a big deal. I don't get worked up about it where she does, like just because she didn't have the opportunity to start on a young horse. But, and then since we're on like what to get nervous about with changes, I would say I see the biggest issue with the changes is that like people try to help the horse too much, you know, like people try to think that it's such a change of bend, you know, when you watch a young horse canter, like on the lunge line for the first time, they often like when they're cantering on the right lead, they often look a little bit to the outside to the left so that their balance is right front leg is forward, neck is a little off to the left. So that those oppose each other and therefore they're balanced. I see so many people try to do the change and I do it myself. It's like instinct, you know, I don't know what it is about us, but we were like, want to pull the inside rein into the new change. You know, we want to pull the horse to the new direction. And that's totally counterintuitive to what the horse would do. When a horse naturally canters, they naturally want to be counterflex. When you sit on a horse the first time and you pick up the canter, to pull on the inside rein and ask them to canter, you're probably going to get a horse that's either running in the trot, or they're going to pick up the wrong lead. You know, to get the correct lead, we have to have the outside rein, right? And that's why we put our outside leg back, because it's the outside hind leg that has to strike forward. But in the changes, for some reason, most of us, I do it, we all try to pull the horse to the new direction, pull him to the inside. And I think that's a huge, okay, we need to not do that. Outside rein, outside leg, new outside rein, outside leg, right?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the advice here is if you don't know changes, don't try and teach your 6-year-old flying changes, because you'll cause more problems than you'll fix. Eyes on the ground, that kind of thing.
Eyes on the ground, exactly. But at some point you got to try, right? Like at some point you got to
get a trainer to teach a horse first. I think that makes a lot more, the money is well spent, I think, in that situation, right? Is get somebody schooled who knows changes.
Depends on who you are. Depends on who you are. If you're an adult amateur that, wants to have their 6-year-old learn how to do changes and wants to continue on, get their bronze medal, whatever, then yeah, probably best for your horse, best for time, whatever. But at the same time, if you're a young rider and have never taught a horse flying change and decide to send it off to training so that it learns the flying change and comes back and you can ride it, then you're never going to learn how to teach a horse a flying change. Like if you've ridden flying changes and you're a young talented rider or an older talented rider, you feel like you have a pretty good sense of where your legs are at, and you've ridden changes, then ask your trainer, can I ride some changes on your horse? Good, fine. And then try it.
I like that plan. You have to know what it feels like first, though. That was
absolutely. You have to know how it feels like, and you have to not get that baggage. If you, like I said, my mom's a prime example, and I hate to throw her under the bus.
Throw her under the bus. Oops.
But it's true.
It's true.
I mean, she didn't have anybody to help her, so she was like, I got to teach my horse how to do a flying change. She was a tricaner, hot, and learned how to run. And she looks back now, and she'll say it herself. She was like, I was so stupid. I would try counter cantering on a 10-meter circle to try to get her to do something, but you got to learn somehow. She didn't have anybody to help her from the ground, she didn't have the opportunity to sit on another horse.
Exactly.
So, yes, it gives you tons of baggage, and it's not good to just try it on a whim without any sort of plan in mind. But at the same time, I've had a few students who I'll put on a green change on the horse, and now I'm like, okay, now you have to continue on. You have to figure it out. They have an idea, you figure it out now.
Well, and I
don't think there's something we have to be scared of. I don't think they are. To be scared of.
I don't think they are, and I think changes get people really hyped up about them, and I think maybe that's one thing you learn is they will learn them. Sometimes they learn them quick, and sometimes they don't. I tell people 6 months. I mean, personally, I say give me 6 months, because people are like, when are they going to learn it?
I'm pretty sure Bertus Schmidt said it takes a year for a horse to have a solid confirmed flying change both ways.
Yeah.
And I think by that he means that like you can do it on the quarter line, you can do it from true lead to counter canter, you can do it counter canter to true lead, you can do it on a circle line. I think his idea of what is a solid flying change is probably more than what you see most 6-year-olds doing. But I do think that like for them to really know on the eighth every time, 99.5% of the time, it'll take a year. So
yeah.
Like, I mean, you got to get started, right?
Calm down. Exactly. That's what I tell people. Calm, take a deep breath. Like, they will learn this. And some learn it quicker than others. Some, there's always one lead that's easier than the other lead. And these are all very common things. And
absolutely.
But I totally agree.
Like, sometimes they need to kick up to do the flying change the first time, Don't panic. It's not like they're going to kick up for the rest of their lives,
Exactly. They won't do it forever.
I do think that a late change is a problem, though. Like, I don't think you can be complacent. Oh, is complacent the right word? Is that the word I'm looking for?
Yeah,
but
no,
like,
it's complete because that's hard to fix.
Be like, oh, it's a late change. We'll fix that in a couple months. Like, that's a problem. Like, I would so much rather have the horse, like, crooked or jumping to the side, not straight, or, kicking a little bit out behind every so often than a late change. I feel like that's you can't end the ride with a bad change or late change. Yes, you'll have them some days, but I mean, it cannot become like, oh, it's been a late change for 2 months. That's a late change.
Yeah, that becomes a problem. No, it's so true. Well, and I think everybody can see, like 6-year-olds, again, they're still growing. They still need a lot of strength. And I found with my bigger 6-year-olds, I have one that's just taken him a long time because it's a big horse. And sometimes, sometimes he comes out and I'm like, oh my gosh, he's amazing. And other days I'm like, oh, we should just walk around. He's just growing and weird and getting muscles. And, I think that's very normal. But, I think 6-year-old year is a really, really fun year.
Exactly.
Well, Emily, we can't thank you enough for your time. You've been so generous with us. And thank you so much. If our listeners have any questions about young horses, how can they get a hold of you?
You can find me on Facebook. Isn't that cliche? Emily Yuxer Miles. And then you can also email me. It's Wallywoo Farm, WALLYWOOFARM @gmail.com.
Awesome. Emily, thanks so much. And give that sweet baby a kiss for us. He is so cute.
Will do. He turns 1 on Saturday. Can you believe that?
No. Oh my gosh.
It has been a year. You
gotta love, I bet. You gotta love Facebook because I feel like I know your baby, but I don't know your baby. So congratulations.
He's amazing. Thank you.
Have a great night. So for this week's Total Saddle Fit, Phil and I are coming back with a listener question. But as always, we just want to tell you real quick about the Total Saddle Fit shoulder relief girths. As always, Phil and I use these every day, and I use literally each one of the products on all my horses. And it just depends on which horse I'm using them and for why. Phil, how about you?
My favorite is the Stretch Check shoulder relief girth that has the elastic over the middle. I think this is the girth that has done the most for the horses. This is also my favorite girth because it has different liners. So you can use the neoprene liner, which is great for everyday training. And then if I want to make it look fancy or have it on a horse that doesn't like the neoprene, it has a leather liner that you can get also. I mean, it's perfect because it's so versatile and it can work on so many different horses. And they have it in black for the horses that go in black and brown for those chestnuts that go in the brown tack. I think it's great that you have so many options with Total Saddle Fit to be able to get what you need and at the right price point for you and your horse. So you can get everything that you need at TotalSaddleFit.com. Next up will be the tip.
This week's dressage training tip is brought to you by Total Saddle Fit, home of the shoulder relief girth at TotalSaddleFit.com.
Well, Phil, we have another great listener question for the week. So what do you have for us?
Well, this was the second part. We tackled the first part of this question from this listener before on an earlier show. and we thought we'd split into two separate parts because they're kind of interesting questions, and we wanted to be able to tackle them independently. So the second part of the question was, what role does lunging play in the older upper level horses? How much are you lunging? What are the benefits? Is it a routine thing? Can you do it to help strengthen top line? And as a extra part to this is, what are any more tips for keeping the older Schoolmaster in shape?
Okay.
So I'll throw it to you here, Reese, and then I'll give you my thoughts after.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, I think lunging is a great tool. We use it. One of the things, my horses are all pretty good on the lunge. And one of the reasons they're good, I like whoever is working for me to lunge them when I'm out of town. So my horses will lunge a little bit when I'm gone. And more, that's just, it depends on who I have that is around that rides them or not. So that's one of the things that we do use lunging if I'm traveling or something like that. So, and that's not all the time. And again, this question it's hard to give a general on an FEI horse because, typically FEI horses are older. So I don't love lunging them a lot. I don't love lunging them on a small circle. I don't love that concept. But again, some horses need it. And some horses, I have one horse in my barn. He's not an FEI horse, but he really needs to lunge once a week. And he does much better. It's just a little bit freedom. He can move and crack his back around. And, it works well for that particular horse. So I think lunging, there are some really good manuals out there. USDF has a very good lunging manual that the instructor certification. You have to do that. But it's a good manual to kind of go through and look. And we've talked about it before on the show. So I do think that it has a place. I am a little bit careful as they get older because, again, as they get to be FEI horses, there are a lot more demands on their legs. But I think a nice light lunge is not a bad thing. I think sometimes if the horses are a little bit sore in their back or they need to move around. But part of that question was how to get an FEI horse fit. I don't necessarily myself use lunging in that way. I may do it, like I said, just to get them out if I'm not around or that kind of thing. For my older horses, and again, FEI, I have a 7-year-old FEI horse to a 16, 17-year-old FEI horse. So there's a big range in age in those guys. But my older ones, I do a lot of walking. Actually, I'm a big believer in those guys need to walk at least 20 minutes in the beginning and at least 15, 20 minutes at the end, and their work's in the middle. So, that's what I like to do with my older guys. I think walking is good. And sometimes we'll do 2-a-days with the older guys or the FEI horses. They'll go out in the morning and do work and then get turned out or do whatever they're doing. And then I'll get back on them in the afternoon just to do walking. And that's a mostly walking work that I do. Sometimes I'll trot and canter. So again, depends on the horse and how much fitness I want to get on them. So that's kind of my take on that. Phil, how about you?
Yeah, I really do not like lunging for any older horses. I think it's a disaster. Puts a lot of torque on the hocks, which is, and the suspensories, which are the kind of the first things to go. Yeah. So, I think, long rein riding, long rein walking, hacking, that kind of thing is great. But, as far as a way to strengthen or train a horse, by the time the horse is at FEI, you're really looking at the top of the training scale. So we're thinking about straightness and collection. You're not going to achieve that with lunging. You can't achieve much of what you want to train in an older horse in lunging. So, going around in a circle is just terrible.
I'm
married to a vet. I'm married to a vet.
Yeah.
So, I think you talk to any vet, I think they don't really like lunging at all because a horse running around in a circle is just not really good for them. So, definitely not routinely. I mean, if they need to let off some steam, then they get free lunge. Like if a horse needs a little bit of exercise, and we run to that in the winter where turnout's not really great because the ground is so hard and icy and you got a horse with that kind of pent up energy, then I'm not going to spin them around on a lunge line. I'm going to let them go free and they can run around as much as they want or as little as they want, and they can get their own energy out to in their own way, right? And they can, they can gallop if they want. I don't mind, but then I think it's free for them to choose.
That freaks me out. Yeah, see, I'm like, no. But my horses are, they do get to go out most of the time. So I don't run into that. But free lunging freaks me out. It's funny. Everybody's a little bit different, but free lunging definitely freaks me out a little bit. I'm like, oh my God. But we don't free lunge very often. And again, if the horses are free lunge their entire life, then it's not a big deal. If I were to free lunge my FEI horse, he'd probably.
Well, I just use it as turnout. It's not. I don't
exactly
free lunge. I just use it as turnout that they can go up in the indoor arena or whatever workspace that we have where the footing is good and whatever, and they can. I mean, sometimes they'll choose to jog around. Sometimes they'll do a long side and canter, whatever. Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's better that they have their own choice and they can balance themselves. And if they want to put a buck in, then they can do that. No. I certainly don't chase them around the indoor arena because there's no purpose in it. Yeah. The older schoolmasters in shape, I think it's all about planning, so you should know at the beginning of your week, this day I'm going to do this. The next day might be an off day or a walk day or, something like that, from like Monday to the following Monday, you have a definite plan and that you don't, do certain exercise for 3 days. You wouldn't do pirouettes for 3 days in a row or, that you have, things staggered out, hard work day, or do this, PF massage, then, the next work day will be stretch trot, something like that. Mm-hmm. So that, they get a little variety and also you're not putting strain on the joints day after day, doing repetitive. It's the repetitions, I think, that really catch up with you and not necessarily, what you're doing over the week. It's just doing the same thing day after day is a bit of a problem. So, you can add variety. You can add some poles. We talk about young horses like pole work. Older horses keep it interesting. They like a little bit of pole work too. You can space out your bending days versus your collection days. Stuff like that. Just really think about a plan and then try and follow it and keep them going for as long as you can. Those schoolmasters are so valuable for learning and teaching that you want to be fair to them and fair on their bodies while still continuing to do stuff. I think that's a balancing act, and I really try and keep my veterinarians involved in this process of the older guys because the longer you keep going, the more value you get out of them. I think that's really important. So those are my thoughts.
Fantastic.
That's how we do it.
That's how we do it. That's how we roll. I like it. Well, as always, thanks so much for your questions. We are always happy to give an answer. So thank you so much for keeping those coming, and we look forward to the next one. Well, as always, Phil and I love email and Facebook shout outs. Please send us all your questions. We love them, and if we can't answer them, we will find somebody that can. You can find our show notes and links to today's guests on our website, dressageradio.com. Like us on Facebook, just search Dressage Radio Show. Follow us on Twitter at Horse Radio. My website is maplecrestfarmky.com, and my email is reese@horseradionetwork.com.
I think the best way to find me is on Facebook, or my email is philip@horseradionetwork.com. I'd like to thank our sponsors for allowing us to put on a show. And don't forget to check out all the other shows on the Horse Radio Network at horseradionetwork.com.
Everybody, keep your heels down and your shoulders back, and we'll talk to you next week.